Hey guys, so really quick before we get started on this episode, I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite apps, Spotify. On Spotify, you can listen to all of your favorite artists and podcasts in one place for free. You don't even need to be a premium user. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're about to listen to right now. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever they are. You can also easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure you download the Spotify app. Search for Candle in a Dark Room on Spotify or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. Also, make sure you follow me so you never miss an episode of Candle in a Dark Room. Hey guys, this is Desi and welcome back to my podcast, Candle in a Dark Room. So today is a very special podcast. I am actually in Los Angeles with some of my good friends and I have a group of 6 women, including myself here, to talk about some very serious issues on sexual assault. I am here with Cassie Scerbo. You guys have heard her on a previous episode. She is the Vice President of Buddha Bullying. Cassie, thank you for being here again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, just so that people know, we kind of, and I love this, we kind of threw this together last minute.
Like literally
no,
last
like,
minute.
as in like a couple minutes ago last minute. I knew that I had some incredible friends that had stories to share that I wanted to put you in touch with, but I think it's so cool that instead we decided to sit in a circle to create a very safe space to lift each other up. I'm a huge advocate for women empowering women, and especially anywhere in the world. But I do know that Los Angeles can be a very trying city, and so it really hits close to home for me. I just know of so many stories, and I've had people, cross the line even with me from time to time in my life, and just things that didn't sit well with me, and I will never keep my mouth shut. So I'm always there to open my mouth and to say what's on my mind and make sure I put people in their place. And today I'm really fucking excited for my best friends to do that too.
Oh, awesome. I'm super excited about it too. So this episode's kind of going to be like a 3 organization type episode. We also have Seak here from Badass Do-Gooders. Seak, and also she's been on this podcast, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm feeling very privileged to even sit here with all of you ladies. So just a little bit about Badass Do-Gooders. It's exactly what it sounds like. But uniquely, the members of Badass Do-Gooders, we're getting ready to launch next month with 125 members. There is a huge chunk of our members and the amazing women that are part of our group is that they come from really difficult and challenging life experiences through different types of trauma. But the beautiful thing is they turn that pain into purpose. Absolutely. And so that's what Badass Do-Gooders is about, is turning pain into purpose and living your life to help others. So exactly. I'm excited
Ain't that
to be
life.
here.
Turning any negative into a positive.
Exactly.
That's all we can do.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, and I'm also here in LA for the Badass Do-Gooders retreat. So that's kind of how I'm even here in the first place. So the guests that I also have Amber here. I want to also introduce her because she is not a guest on this episode today, but I really thought it was important to have her here because she's been a previous guest and she's in town with me as well. And I think having her insight as a survivor is also going to be very helpful. So Amber, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Yes, Amber.
And then the 2 guests that we are going to have we have Brittany, who is Cassie's best friend, one of her best friends, and then also we have Alexa, who is another really good friend of Cassie's. Cassie reached out to a group of her friends this week and just let them know that I was here, actually like today, let them know that I was here.
Always doing a million guys, I try.
Yeah, it always works better this way, to just like, this is what we're doing, in an hour, be here, be there. Yeah, definitely more
And for
organic.
LA, that's very challenging with all the driving.
Yeah, exactly. We went through traffic for this.
We went to the 405 for this,
right?
It's
love, baby.
So yeah, I just, again, Cassie sent out a message letting her friends know that this is what we are doing, and Brittany had confirmed last night that she wanted to do this. She has a really interesting, crazy, and just empowering, but also really traumatic situation and story that I think is something that needs to be talked about because it's something that unfortunately does happen in the LA industry, like often.
Entertainment
Industry, and I just think it's important. And then Alexa just came out with basically this is today is going to be her talking about it and being open about it for the first time, right? So again, this is a safe place, and I'm just going to start by introducing Brittany. So again, Brittany is a professional hip-hop dancer from Miami living in Los Angeles. She works in the entertainment industry. She has traveled around the world backup dancing for some of the biggest artists in the music industry, such as Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, and more, which I'm super envious of you because I think that's like amazing. She can also be seen dancing in over 10 feature films, such as the Step Up franchise, Pitch Perfect, and more. She is here to share her story of an experience of sexual assault within the dance community. So, Brittany,
Yes.
you know, we talked about this at sushi last night a little bit, and you told me a little bit about your story, and I want you to do that today, but I want you to tell us your story without filter of like what you've been holding in. This is something that you've been holding for
10
years, a decade. And
or without, can I say one thing? Sorry, just because I know you so well in the story. Without having to protect anybody. I'm not saying you have to say names, but like don't hold back your story in fear of protecting.
Right. Like this is your moment, and like this is you taking your power back of like, screw you guys. Like I'm gonna be heard because you haven't been heard about this for 10 years, and recently with people in your life you haven't been heard, and so this is your opportunity to be heard. So again, you've been holding this for a decade, and I know from my own personal experience and other people's that like that is hard. It's hard to walk around with that like brick on your back. So let's start by you kind of starting from the beginning of how it all happened, and maybe a little bit of your background of how you kind of grew up and the things that you've already kind of been through, and then what led to today.
Yeah. So I have been dancing all my life. I grew up at a dance studio ever since I was 3. And then when I was about 16, I started working professionally in the dance industry. Miami has a really great dance scene, so I was lucky enough to experience that. And there was a choreographer who used to come in town. He was very big at the time. He was at the head of his career, and he used to come in and do master classes really often. So I would always go and take his class. And he had actually been hooking up with a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine at the time, which is how I kind of gained a little bit more of a personal relationship with this man. I was a little more than just a student who would just go and take his class. We would sometimes hang out after, nothing to do with myself, just strictly because of the relationship he had with a good friend of mine. So then we kind of just kept in touch. The dance industry is really small, and it's just like anything in the entertainment industry, you want to keep networking and you keep those relationships. So I knew that I was moving out to LA. I moved out here when I was 20. So I had known him for probably like 3 years or so. He would come back and forth to Miami pretty often teaching. And so I had always kept in touch, and I had reached out to him when I was moving to LA because Cassie, actually, she was living out here at the time, so I had her. But as far as the dance industry, I didn't really know anybody out here. So I liked to keep all my contacts as close as possible. So I moved out here, and I had contacted him. And so this was probably my first year out in LA. And there was one specific night that he had invited me to go out. So I knew him. This wasn't some random stranger. Once again, this wasn't some person who I just took his class once or twice. I wouldn't say we were good friends, but it was definitely more of a personal relationship. Someone I had known out here. I felt safe. It was someone that I know, and so I had met up with him at one point. We had gone out. There was multiple people there. We were out. We were drinking, but nothing too crazy at all. And we go back to his house, and there was people there at the time. Eventually, people left. And it was just me and him. And I remember vividly, he had offered me ecstasy. I had never done any drugs in my life at the time, so I said no. And at this point, I was still sober. I had been drinking, but I definitely was not drunk by any means. And so he had offered me ecstasy. I said no. He made me a drink. I remember taking a sip of the drink, and that is the last thing I remember until I woke up in his bed completely naked. And it catches you off guard because I do hold responsibility. I was at his house. You know, it's not... But in the morning, you wake up and you're just like, wait, what? Like, I was just so confused. But it didn't give me enough time to really process everything. So the first thing that initially goes through my head is I blacked out. That was just the initial reaction, but I knew that I had not drank enough at all. And then he started going into details about our sexual experience. And that's when I was like...
Like, just telling you? Like, just what you did?
I remember vividly, he was like, oh, the Miami came out in you last night. That's what he said.
Wow. Okay.
And, like, it was almost like I was in shock.
Damn, Miami's about to come out in me, motherfucker.
Yeah. So,
For real.
I was so confused. I was naked in his bed, so I know that we had sex. Clearly also by the details that he just had expressed.
Okay.
I left. So, I was still so confused, and I literally, at first, all I went through my head is, I think this is a natural thing. You almost blame yourself of, did I black out? Like, you know, I don't remember, and I know I didn't drink enough, but maybe I did. So then that kind of sat with me. This kind of went through different phases. So that sat with me for a little bit. Then I was like, let me give myself some time for maybe things to come back. I had blacked out before, so I know kind of, like, details do come back when you drink too much. So then, like, a little time passed, and nothing was coming back, and I was still like, that's so weird that nothing had ever come back. But I didn't think he drugged me. That's not something that I necessarily thought, also because I knew him. So naturally, you don't think someone you know. When you think of the date rape drug of a roofie, I think of maybe the movie stories of some random guy when you go to the bathroom at a club and you leave your drink, they do it. This was a man I knew, and in the dance industry, so that I was in. So we had mutual people. No, they never
go through denial.
Yeah, they never crossed my mind.
And did you feel like hungover? Like, did you feel sick or anything after? So you just felt fine.
Literally, like, just confused and in shock.
Okay,
that's it.
I also want to like not preface because you've said the story, but truly like. Not that anyone has, like, how dare anybody ever judge anything, and what happened is so disturbingly awful, and there's nothing that would ever make it okay.
Right.
But I will say, Brittany is not a drinker. I'm like, you blacked out before this. I don't even know when, because I've known you for 20 years. So this isn't like a story.
Not like a party. Yeah.
There's no blurred lines here. It's not like I was wasted in this. Like, I know,
but
like...
naturally,
it's not like you're like, oh, I know Brittany. She gets, like, crazy, and maybe she doesn't remember.
No,
never.
I had been
you were just
drinking.
Like, having, I'm sure,
and we had gone to a club, so... But that's where you almost take the guilt, and you almost you just put it on you first. Because, like, why? Like, I didn't know anything had happened.
Right.
So then, I would say for about a month, nothing came back. Okay. So that's when I started to get really concerned because, TMI, but it's time for my period, and I don't remember anything.
Right.
Did this man come inside of me? Did this? I don't know. So, and I was waiting, and I remember being a little late for my period. I literally remember exactly where I was. We were training with Alec at that gym, and I remember, like, just having, like, a little anxiety inside. Because I just didn't remember anything. So, now my phase kind of went from the confusion to, I'm starting to think this is a little abnormal. Like, nothing, not one detail came back. It was literally like a movie. I took a sip of the drink and then woke up in his bed naked.
So you didn't even drink the whole thing from what you remember. You had
and it was, I just know it was right after he had offered me ecstasy. And I had never done ecstasy at the time. Now I have. So I know that it wasn't ecstasy.
You know that.
I know because ecstasy doesn't make you black out like that. I know that. So, but it was just a little interesting that he'd offered me a drug and then the next thing I remember is waking up in his bed naked. So Cassie knows me. I'm not very an emotional person. So things just didn't... I still kind of, it went over my head. Some more time went by. So now I'm like, this is just so strange. Like, not one detail, like, had ever come back. And it was actually Cassie who was like... I obviously had opened up to her and I was just confused. And she was the one that was like... Something is off. Something is wrong.
Majorly.
I think he drugged you. And so I went from the confusion to now, even though she brought it to my attention, the in denial phase of, no way he would do that. I knew him. Like, that makes no sense. And to be completely honest, because we're just being really raw, he probably could have slept with me. But it's the fact that I have zero recollection and no memory, so that's what makes it even worse. Is you didn't even try sober. You just went for.
It's not like he asked and you turned him down or something. Like,
exactly.
He just never even asked.
He didn't even ask, which that's where I get so angry because I'm like, you could have avoided all of this,
right?
Probably. I don't know, but like in the moment, I'm just being really raw. It might have happened. Mm-hmm. So he was a good-looking man. He was really like the top of his career.
Successful, right.
Womanized. Like he got a lot of women. So this is all just like.
But that's kind of the scary thing. It's like sometimes people get off on that. Like,
I can get anyone I want when I want, like whether they want to.
But no, I'm saying like people like. Just unfortunately, people are sick. Like some people want, even if they think they can get you, maybe it's this like fantasy in their head that I'm gonna drug her. Like there's a power in that, which I don't know what that power is because that's not me. I couldn't understand, but it's like I could never understand that. But it's just making women aware that like, and you know, there are people out there that and you know the statistics, and a lot of the times they're the people that are the closest to you.
Right? Yeah. Like and I think the statistics is like 90. Yeah. I want to say it's like 93 or something % as by people that you know.
It's in the high 80s for sure.
Like, it's insane. Yeah. I'm pretty sure when I looked, it was like 93 or something. Wow. You're sex trafficked and assaulted by somebody that you know.
Never pick up a drink unless you made it and never put it down. Once you put it down, just throw it away. I don't care how expensive it was.
In his house. That's why, like I said, it took so long. This wasn't your typical situation of some random person.
Totally.
So then Cassie was the one that was like, nah, shit's off. Like, I think he drugged you. And I still was in denial for a while. By the time I really was like, I think he did. Like, I really think he did. I think it just went over my head and I didn't even deal with it. So it was at that point that
it was just like too much.
It was almost just like too much. Time had already passed. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, like, I'm almost like, what am I supposed to do now? And the unfortunate thing is, like, why I never really think I was so emotional with it is because I don't remember anything. Mm-hmm. So it took a long time for it to really sit with me. It was easy for it to go over my head because I don't have any vivid memory of anything.
Right.
So then time passed, but I had come to terms with, nah, like, I'm pretty sure this is what happened.
And have you seen him during this time?
Here and there. Okay. I had refused to, like, go to his class because he still taught and go to an audition with him. But I had seen him here and there. The dance industry's small, so there's events and
he had never said anything about it again.
Nothing. When he saw me, it was like, oh my God, hi. Like, as if nothing. So the thing where things kind of got real was I had a friend who was very close to him for 12 years. She had been his assistant for 12 years, and they had a very, very, very bad falling out. So I had opened up to her one day. And just because she was kind of telling a little bit of her story with the same man, and I had opened up to her, and I'm like, I think this is what happened. Like, this is so weird. And she goes, Brittany, word for word, your story, I had heard from at least 3 people that I can confirm with. She goes, word for word. Someone had even witnessed him putting the drug in a drink. Now, her story is just beyond. Let's just say he also has a past of heavy, heavy, heavy physical abuse. So she was the one...
With, like, random, like, with people he knows, like, friends, quote unquote.
People he was close to.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was the one that just solidified and confirmed everything for me. Because I had come to terms with it, but like I said, you don't have vivid proof because I don't remember anything. Right. So when she said word for word, your story is identical to 3 other people that she knows of. So you can even imagine. Right. He did it to a girl he was dating. A girl he was dating that one night she wanted to leave early. And she said to her friend, she confided in her friend, the one that I had confided in, she goes, I think he drugged me. And she was like, what? And her story was the exact same. And another girl, she had witnessed him do it, and he held her hostage in a room and threatened her if she said anything. So this was a thing he did. Like, this wasn't an actual thing that he did.
This confirmed that this was like a regular.
This confirmed that I'm not crazy.
Right.
I'm not making this up. Because you still have your doubt, naturally. Right. Well, not naturally, but I did. I still had, like, a little bit of doubt. And when she said that, I was like, this motherfucker. Like,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, like, when you had found out that 3 other people that you knew of had the exact same story, word for word, did it make you feel better?
Yes.
Okay. And why I'm saying this is why it is so fucking important to talk. And to tell and to never be scared, because
you don't know who's been through a similar situation.
Who you might be saving, helping,
who might
teaching.
come up in that situation soon and not know what to do.
And who you could help, because people feel so alone.
And then you feel
something like this.
It's isolating.
It's very isolating.
Which just brings on depression and
anxiety
and even body disorders.
Well, again, it's shame. Like, she felt, like, shame. She felt guilty.
I
like,
felt
okay,
crazy.
did something happen? Like, you don't know, so...
Yeah, no one deserves to feel that way.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I never wanted to put out false information because it's heavy. So when she confirmed it, especially when I found out that it was people he knew and that he was close with, I just knew. Like, I knew. I had solid proof that I'm not crazy. Like, this is exactly what had happened to me, because the stories were just the same. And they were all friends, or like I said, it was even a woman he was dating. So this was just something he, like I said, he did. And so after that, you know, even so, it made me feel so much better, but I think I never really still dealt with it emotionally. It was more just confirmation.
Right, yeah.
Until recently, it's actually just like the way the world works, how I'm talking about this now. The dance industry has been going through a lot right now, especially during quarantine. Just like a lot of stuff have been coming to light, and a lot of people have been coming out with sexual assault accusations.
Right.
And I was listening to other people's story, and that's why, like, I'm so happy I'm doing this, because I know how I came to light about this.
Right.
I was listening to other people's story, and it just made my mind run like 1,000 miles an hour of, like, I actually for the first time sat and thought, I got raped. And I had never said those words before. Right. Ever. Because this is still a man that I see. And as disgusting as that is, it's just a small world. I have friends that are friends with him. I would see him out. And I always got my distance, but it's a really tough situation because this is also my profession. Right. So, you know, but for the first time, I, like, just sat and I thought, and I was like, wow. Like, I can't believe that happened to me. Right. Because Cassie knows, but like I said, I'm not really an emotional person. Like, just in general in life. Happen to you like, either. Things go over my head. I don't really, like, I'm not a big crier. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, this actually happened to me. This is something really, really, really serious and heavy and traumatic. And I never even, like, thought about it.
Well, and I feel like, again, like I said a second ago, I feel like you never thought this could happen to you because you didn't put yourself in a dangerous situation. You didn't put yourself with a random stranger that you didn't know, or in a club drinking a drink that someone gave you. Like, again, this was someone you knew, someone you had, like, been friends with. So you never had you didn't put yourself in a situation where this was possible. You know what I mean? This was something completely, like, shocking to you. And so again, it's one of those things that's like, this could never happen to me. Like, I don't put myself in this situation, so this can't happen to me. And then when it did, it's shocking because it's like, wait, holy crap. Like you said, like, I can't believe that I was raped. Like, that coming to that realization is crazy.
And now just, like, everything is coming together, and it just, like, now, so I went through the confusion, I went through the denial, and now I'm just angry. Because he's still working in this industry. Like, I see him have jobs and people dancing for him. And
no one's spoken about this.
And I have friends that are friends with him. And I'm just like, oh my God. It makes me so angry. And also knowing that my friend's history, like physical abuse and some really, really, really heavy things, I'm just like, I'm angry now. But I'm also, it's almost like I don't know really where to go with this. So, like, you know, there are hopes, like, there's power in numbers, and I would love for, you know, eventually other people to come together. Just where I'm at now, I wish I was comfortable saying his name and doing something. I'm not. That's just where I'm at.
You're just not right now, and that's okay.
I'm just not.
Don't feel shame about that, because that's okay. Like, you need to make sure you're ready when it happens.
Like I said, he does have a history of physical abuse, and we have a lot of the same circle.
You
So
have to be careful,
I'm a little scared. But I feel like I'm on the right path, and, you know, this took 10 years, and hopefully it won't take more, another 10 years, but I'm proud to at least share the story in hopes of other people, and that's, the most important thing.
Right.
Because like you said, it's people you know and people you least expect, and it was to a woman that he was already sleeping with.
Right.
So, which is just
so crazy.
Beyond. And like I said, I was at his house, this was never anything you would think, but he just went right to, nope, I'm just gonna make her unconscious and just have her, so now I think my toughest thing is, like I said, I see him and he's in the industry, and I've been dealing a lot with friends because I never felt a certain way, so I couldn't judge anyone for feeling a certain way, but now it's that tough position because my feelings have changed. Because it's almost like it happened to me yesterday. It's like I'm just reliving it for the first time. And so I'm trying to find the balance of, well, how do I tell my friends all of a sudden, you can't see him and you can't this, when that was never the case for myself.
Right.
So, it's almost like a lot on me now of just, trying to navigate just everything. I've officially taken myself out of all situations with him because my emotions are so different. I have one friend who is very, very close to him, and I refuse to go. If he's there, I'll leave. Where I didn't do that in the past. I just would distance myself, but I wouldn't. So it's a whole new situation for me now that I'm even trying to navigate.
And,
we
talked about a little bit yesterday as well of the friends you have confided in about this haven't cut him off yet. And so that's really hard for you.
Yeah.
Kind of explain that, just because I feel like that is a very common feeling of, people don't have your back like you expected to, and how that feels. And now you kind of feel alone in this with the people that you shouldn't feel that way with.
There's a handful of people that I've opened up to about this, especially recently, because this is a whole new story recently. I'm not going to judge anyone, or I'm not going to put anything on people up until a couple months ago, because I never opened up about it. Right. So I can't say anything to friends who felt a certain way. But now that, I feel like I said, my emotions took, a whole 180 on the whole situation, there are a few people that I've heavily, heavily opened up to about it. They know my emotions. They know where I'm at. They know where I feel about this. They know how triggered I am with it. And so it's hard because, especially I have one friend who I'm very, very close with. It's almost like he gets it, but he doesn't get it all. He's been there. He listens to me, but I still see him in rehearsals with this man. And that just makes me feel just so betrayed right. And not understood. And, I'm not one to necessarily tell someone not to take a job, because I know how this industry works. I know everyone needs their money and anything, but I just want to feel that my feelings are validated, right. And that, they respect that. So I'm actually, in the process of, unfortunately, losing a friendship, because if they can't see that I just, my mind is blown in this situation. And I've been really honest, and I'm really open. I'm like, listen, I understand that this is different now. So the past is the past of, if you would have taken a job 4 months ago, this would have been a whole different thing. But you're aware of where I'm at now. Right. So let's just say this happened yesterday. And so it's really hard, because now it's seeing my friends have to re-navigate.
To me, it's just so white and black. It's
I know.
If something to that extent happens to one of your best friends, I don't give a shit.
You cut the time. You don't care how much
what
money.
The job is. I don't care if it's for Prince Edward.
Right.
I don't even know if there is a Prince Edward. I don't think there is. But if there were, and it was for him, you better not. You better cut the ties.
I'm
not saying
show
Prince
up
Edward
at
is
his house,
Prince whoever Prince Edward is a prostitute, whatever, is someone who's doing these things. But I'm just saying, if he had a choreographer.
And that's the difficult part, is for yourself, right, where you're at now with your emotions, is the boundaries that you're having to set for yourself now, right? To protect you and protect, you know what I mean? So it's just difficult all around, because you care about that person and you think they care about you. Yeah. And so, you know, you do have these we're all human, so we have these expectations from people that we are close to. And then when they fall short of that, that's a whole nother set of emotions.
It's a whole nother set.
And like, yeah, I would get it. Like, I know there's a lot of those there's a lot of quotes that are like, you know, you can't expect everybody to have the same heart as you or the same, whatever it may be. Yeah. Morals, values, whatever. We're all human. We all have our own paths. But when it's something like that, to me, there is just no excuse.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, for you, like, this is validating how you feel about what the situation. It took you 10 years to uncover this that's been swept under the rug for this entire time. And you're finally having the strength and the bravery to come out and be like, hey, this fucking happened. Like, this happened to me. Like, I was assaulted. Like, this is not okay. But then you have the people that are supposed to have your back for it that don't and go off and hang out with this person. Yeah. It's a stab in the back. And you, at that point... And I, again, can only say this because I've had to do the same thing, which it sucks and it hurts and it's bullshit and it's not fair. But at that point, you have to take care of you. Yeah. And you have to follow what you need for you. And right now, you are in a vulnerable space that, like, you can't have that bullshit around you right now.
And I cut ties because I was just like, the fact, because I expressed this to him. Right. And then that same day, I saw him in a rehearsal for nothing. Like
an hour later after she told me the story.
Oh my gosh.
We were literally dying about this last night because she was telling us how she was like sitting there telling him this at dinner or whatever. And then an hour later, he was there with him and just like rehearsing and dancing with him. And that literally blows my mind. Like, I just don't get it.
The other part of it too, I'm just thinking out loud too when you're sharing that part of your story and just the dynamics of the different relationships that you have with people. You kind of question is like, do they think this is okay? Right. You know, because it's not okay like what happened to you, but do they approve of this? You know,
do they believe me? I mean, not in your face, but in some cases, and that sucks. But you know, at the end of the day, you know in your heart when you do the right thing, and that's all that matters.
It's your story. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Is this is your story, this is your truth, and
that's their drop.
Whatever they choose to do with it is on them, and that's when you just have to be like. I mean, I've lost a lot of friends since like coming out with my story on my podcast originally, and things like this because it's too much for people to handle. I mean, I literally had a friend say, it's just too sad and I can't handle it. Like, I just can't be around it, right? Like, around you. Like, because it was just too much for her to handle. And I'm just like,
too much for them.
Yeah.
Right. For you.
How too much for them. Yeah, like, legit. She was just too much for her to, like, hear. So she just had to, like, completely just distance herself from my life. And I've had that happen a couple times. And it's like, for us, I'm just going to throw this out there, normal people, it's weird. Like, it's not okay. It's not okay for you to hear those type of things and be like, well, that's too much, so I'm going to go live over here in my bubble and act like these things don't happen and act like this isn't a normal, like this isn't a regular situation. Yeah. And so, first of all, the way you've handled it the past 10 years, like, is incredible. Champion. Like, that you have, you know, faced him and that you've continued to just, like, masked it, basically, and kept it under the rug, which, you know, it's not healthy for you, but you did what you had to do for yourself at that time. And that's okay. It's okay if it takes you 5, 10, 15 years to come to terms with something that happened to you. And it did. It took a decade for that to happen. But here you are. You're still young. You're still working. You're still in the industry. He's still in the industry. So it's not too late. Like, it's not too late to do something about it now. And you just talking about it in, you know, right here and other podcasts or whoever else you're telling about it can be enough that it could maybe be enough to where it comes back to him that people are talking about it and then he doesn't want to do it again. He gets too scared to do it again. Or another girl hears that it happened to them and it's like, holy crap, that happened to me with him too. Yeah. Or it happened to me with someone else or whatever the situation is. You just never know whose light that you could be. Exactly. And so you coming out with this, I just think is a really incredible. So I'm really proud of you.
Yay. So proud of you.
And I just think you're amazing. And
hell yeah.
I mean, karma's going to come, and this day's going to come, and justice is going to come, and all you can do is just keep using your voice and advocating for yourself, and the rest will happen.
As we always say, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly, in its own time. So, thank you so much for sharing your story.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm like, it's okay.
I love you. Well, yeah, Cassie was there throughout all of it. Yeah. If it weren't for her, we probably wouldn't even have come to terms with
it. That's good friends for you. Like, I
know she's the best.
And my best friend was my best friend since 4th grade, and like I couldn't have been where I am without her support, and like that's important. That's the friendships that you need to look at. Like those are the ones that are loyal. So
people need people at the end of the day. I mean, that's a good different subject, but that's what I was going to say before. It's just like, honestly, talking about things, even if none of the things we mentioned, which I'm sure they all will happen, it's just about getting things off your chest and breaking the silence. And I finally learned that for the first time this year. Yeah. Just like even with you guys opening up on the panel and being inspired by people like Anna Lynn and you and, you know, everyone else just sharing their stories. And obviously then I met Desi at that panel and hearing her story. And I was like, wow, like those women that like have the people that I know who have been through the most are the most powerful, beautiful, like lit up people. I'm like, I want to be like these people, and I can't even say I've been through half of what they've been through, but it is my duty to share what I have been through, just with my own personal struggles. Because if I can help one person the way like you all have helped me and made me realize how important it is to like never feel ashamed for anything and to just always be honest, because you can't go back, and all you can do is push forward and either gain your power back or grow as a human or whatever the case may be. Every situation is different, but there is, like, it's never a negative thing to break the silence. Yeah, ever. Even if it's something you did wrong, like, come clean. That's another way to break the silence. People, like, we're not perfect, but you gotta just talk it out.
The craziest thing was when I went on the other podcast and had expressed it for the first time ever. I didn't say any names, especially within the dance industry. I just, like I said, I'm not there yet. Right. But I had so many people hit me up, and they knew exactly who I was talking about. And that was so great to me.
That was validation enough.
It was validation, and it also was like for it to click in other people's head of like, oh man, I should have said something back in the past, because he has a reputation. So when you hear whose name it was, you're not sickly, you're not shocked. Yeah. You're not surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
So like even just like the more and more, I feel really great that, like you said, karma's just gonna come around, and it's gonna say itself, you know, without.
Well, like Cassie said, you know, being that person for someone, like, you know, goes cliche with with my business, but like you literally can be that candle for someone in like the darkest of darkness, and like you just giving them that little tiny bit of hope, that little tiny bit of light can literally help them guide themselves out of that tunnel. You know what I mean? That dark space. And so that's why, again, it's so important to do these type of things and to talk about it, and to, you know, even if you're not saying a name, you're saying enough to where it can save somebody. So again, thank you so much for telling your story. So
absolutely, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, in the dark room, there's a candle.
It's true. So Alexa, now again, I kind of told you guys a little bit that, so this kind of whole thing happened crazy. It's not crazy. Things happen, as Seek says, things happen for a reason, and nothing's ever coincidence. Nothing's an accident. Yeah. But this whole thing with, you know, Alexa wasn't going to be here. Like, this was just going to, you know, I was here yesterday with Cassie, and we were drinking wine, like, talking about doing a podcast episode with a couple people today. But it was, like, specifically Brittany and a couple other people. And then this morning we talked to one of the other girls, whose also name is Alexa, and it wasn't able to come. And so we ended up having to reschedule her. And Cassie ended up sending out a text to a group of her friends just saying, hey, this is what's going on today. We're going to be recording a podcast, blah, blah. And This Alexa just basically told Cassie, like, this is
That's okay. The first time I heard you talking about Alexa's on her way, I thought you were talking to, like, the Alexa. I was, like, waiting for music to play or something. So.
Alexa, play On Her Way.
That's what I thought you were
true.
That is the story of my goddamn life.
I bet that's really screwed you up, huh? Alexa, come here. I'm sorry. Where would you like me to go?
I had to unplug it. Now it's completely unplugged, but anytime Alexa would come over, I'm unplugging this damn thing.
Goes off every 5
2
minutes.
Alexas in here, so I left the room, people. Hate that thing. By the way, can we do a group podcast all the time?
I know. I love this.
First of all, just being honest, we all know, like, we're always on different crazy schedules, and, like, it's great to
and we're not even all in the same state.
Like. I know, but just, like, get all, like, everybody's stories in at once. It's like...
It's more healing. I love it.
Not only is it, like, great for scheduling purposes for you, but, like, it is so healing, and you feel so uplifted when you have people around you supporting you.
These are my favorite ones. Like, my favorite ones have been these, because, again, it's when people are raw and vulnerable, and, like, people give their opinions, and people who haven't been through things give their opinions, and people who have been through similar situations, you know, it's so healing and not alone. And I think, like you said, I think it's really great to do these type of things.
I love it.
But yeah, Alexa, just ended up messaging Cassie and was like, oh my gosh, like today's basically been a shit show, like emotional mess, like this happened to me, and just it kind of all spilled from there. So
yeah, no,
it's meant to be.
It was a mental shit show.
Yeah.
Like I woke up crying. Do you ever have those days? Like it's weird because I feel like I just bottle so many things up. And it's like I just wake up one day and I'm like, oh cool, I can't stop crying all day. And that was pretty much me until I came here.
Well, again, I feel
cry,
like
girl.
we're here. This is a safe place to cry. We've done it before. But
Totally.
you know, like I said to Brittany a minute ago, like you've been holding this, you're holding this secret, and it's gonna eat away at you. It's going to literally chip you away one piece at a time. And I mean that from what you've just said so far, from what you've told me, like that is the case in the situation. So why don't you just kind of start from the beginning and kind of just again how you got here and why you're here today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now that I've heard Brittany's story, I kind of also want to like delve into another story. So I'm going to make them both like kind of short.
Okay.
And so I can tell both of them if that's
Yeah,
cool.
Totally.
But I talked to my therapist this morning and I was like, why am I crying? Why am I so sad? And she was like, sometimes we went on a little bit, but then she was like, sometimes if things have occurred at a certain point in time or like a certain season, the season will kind of bring you this sadness.
Right.
And so end of August has always been a sad time for me. That was the time I lost my virginity, which was a really kind of horrific time for me. And then also when I got roofied by a really high up, kind of like you, Brittany. So it's just kind of like summertime sadness for me.
Right.
So when I was 16, I got a little drunk at a party and went to bed, and I had someone come up behind me, and I thought it was my boyfriend at the time, and I was a virgin, and he started caressing me, and we were on weird terms at this point, so I kind of just, by, I don't know, societal pressure, felt like I had to say, just put it in. So he did, and we had
You were
sex.
turned around.
And I was on, I was on my
so you
side.
did see him.
I was on my side, yeah. And then it ended up being his best friend. So I dealt with that for a really long time because I was consensual, you know? I said, just put it in. But I also obviously thought it was my boyfriend. But it wasn't.
So can you tell us a little bit about that reaction of like how, you know, when that happened and you realized it wasn't your boyfriend, what happened?
I felt embarrassed, and I was so young, and I never intended on losing my virginity that young. That was something I kept really near and dear to me. But I definitely felt embarrassed. I was just mortified because, and then I didn't want him to know that I thought it was someone. So it was totally.
Oh, so he didn't know that you
thought it was someone different. No. Yeah, I never told him. I was just like, cool, it happened. And then I just kept it internal for so long. I mean, till probably right now.
Wow.
So I kind of just brushed it off as something that was like, oh, I lost my virginity. Cool. But also internally it was like, oh, that's not how I wanted it to happen at all.
Right.
So it sucked. And then I also kind of like deal with this whole thing of he knew. I mean, I don't know if he knew. I don't know.
He knew. He knew
A lot
who
of
you were.
questions.
It's
a lot of
million
questions.
It's a
But to
million
him, I mean,
questions.
he probably in his head it was consensual and has probably never thought twice about it.
Right.
But the way it happened to you, it would hit differently. And
Yeah. So I struggle with that a lot because I'm like, what do I consider this? It wasn't consensual because I didn't think you were, you know?
But yet you said it, and yeah, it's
I had been
confusing.
dating your best friend for a whole year.
Right.
Why would I think it was you? You know?
In a dark
Why would
room.
he
Did
try?
he ever say
the fact that he
anything?
tried.
Like, did he use his voice?
No.
Interesting.
And then it was done, and
to say the least.
Yeah. So it was just, it's a very confusing experience to me.
All right, guys. So if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me wearing and repping the cutest leggings and workout gear. Well, all of that is from my ladies at Clone Apparel. The founder, Alex, was actually a guest on episode 10, Darkness Before Dawn on season 1, which was about suicide prevention. Clone specializes in apparel for every booty and boob type. Plus, they have stuff for men as well. I can literally go from recording this podcast to the gym to picking up my kids and never have to worry about them moving, scrunching, or showing my booty. They are squat proof, moisture wicking, and did I mention super affordable? I'm talking nothing over $45. They will be launching new styles, including high-waisted workout shorts this month, which I seriously cannot wait for. Check out the Clone highlight on my Instagram page and make sure you follow them on Facebook and or Instagram at Clone Apparel. That's KLON Apparel. And the link to their website is in the bio. Also, if you use the discount code Candle in a Dark Room, one word, you will get 20% off. So make sure you check them out now. You will not regret it.
But so that's A. And then B, once you brought up your subject, I kind of wanted to touch on this thing. When I moved out to LA, I was a model, and I joined this, I'm not going to, okay, I can't say names. I joined this modeling catering service, and I had been doing it for a couple months, been making a lot of money from it, and a couple months into it, I got a text that said, hey, we need 6 models tonight. Are you into it? To work at a huge designer, her son's party. And I was like, obviously, I want to model for her someday. I want to model for this man's mom.
Right.
And so I went, and it ended up being 6 models and 6 dudes. And they tried to give me a drink the entire night, and I said no. And then finally, like 2 hours in, I said yes to a margarita. Don't remember anything. This was a Friday. I didn't come to until a Sunday.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you were at the same house?
Same house.
For 2 days?
For 2 days, and don't remember any of
What
it.
in that?
That's
So
crazy.
That's crazy.
what happened? How did you come to? What was the situation?
I had one drink. I was like, okay, I'll have a margarita. And this was when I was 20. So, like, I didn't go with them to the club or anything. And, yeah, the little bits I remember just are such little bits.
When did you wake up? In the
In
house?
a bed. Yeah, in not my clothes. And
Were you with someone, like, specifically, or
I was next to another girl, so that made me feel better. Another model, but also I felt just so terrible at the same time. Like, I just feel so gross about it because I have no recollection of what happened.
That's what I was saying. It's like
Yeah.
the hardest thing. Oh my God, I have chills. It's like the hardest thing when, like, you want to, like, you just don't know. You have no
I'm
idea
looking for, like, the
what
right word.
happened.
Yeah.
But that's,
It's like
gross is like, I hate that you use that because I love you, and I hate that you resonate that because I love you. But it sucks that, like, it just sucks so badly that someone else's disgusting behavior, I keep using the word disgusting because I won't even use the word bad because it just disgusts me. That, like, it's so unfortunate that women have to feel because boundaries were crossed with their body, which is our temple.
so now we have to
that we have to feel shame.
grossness
It's
and
just
that,
so
we have to
it's
wonder.
so horrible.
Yeah.
Well, I've
We
never
have to
experienced,
wonder.
like, where
Yeah.
I was drugged once, but, like, this with my friends, and it was in Vegas. This was, like, 2 years ago. But nothing happened because I was with my friends, and, like, we'd watched each other. But when I took my friend's drink, I ended up, like, I remember blacking out. I remember them carrying me to the room. I remember putting my hands on the railing and ants crawling at my arm because there was a bunch of ants on the railing in Vegas. And then luckily my friends took me to the room, and, like, I told them, lock the door, make sure no one can come in here because I was scared of that. So I've had situations like that where, thank goodness, like, my friend watched me. But I also, because of my past and the things that happened to me, the frustration of you saying how, like, you don't remember and that's so hard, has literally been my entire childhood. So, like, people will say, remember when this happened? Or, like, you remember, you know, like, big moments in my life. Like, a, you know, big Disneyland trip that we took before my parents came home and told us they were getting divorced. Before, like, big things happened. And I have no memory. Like, none. Like, I don't remember, like, my brother being born. I don't remember, like, any of that time in my life. And it sucks because, like, because of trauma. Because of trauma, I blocked it out. But I, like, that frustration of, like literally turning and tossing me in bed, like, I cannot freaking remember. Like, why don't I remember this? Like, this is something important. Like, I should have this in my memory. So I get that, like, that frustration of just
I
not
absolutely
knowing.
have trauma brain, too. Like,
Oh, yeah. It's real.
Trying to think about my teenage years or even just like my early 20s because of what I just talked about. It's just like crazy.
Did you ever talk to the girl that was next to you?
That was my question.
I did. So I have a friend and she also hung out with them at a like months later. Kind of did the same things that I was doing with them. And I was like, please ask about me because I just want to see what their reaction is or see what they say. And she asked about me, and I guess their bodyguard said, oh, yeah, we got her good. So
that is that is so messed
in on it.
No, I hate this. Yeah, this
God.
is, and that's the most horrible thing. That's a horrible thing. It's like, that's how corrupt just the world is in general. Such a big portion of it.
With everything that's going on, we're finding out, like,
of course,
big, you know,
the Epstein
government
thing.
people, Epstein people, like, big people that are known.
like bodyguard and like big designers,
people that
and,
are
like,
supposed
you know,
to
that's one story.
protect us, cops, you know, all certain cops that pull people over and they've said that, like, things have happened, or like again, government people that are supposed to protect us and have these laws,
judges,
make these judges, you know, there's so many people that are like supposed to protect us, like bodyguards, those type of people that are the ones that are behind it, and it's such bullshit because it's, and the fact that they sit there and glow about it.
Exactly. I'm like, what does that even mean? Did you run a train on me? Did you? I just don't even.
Like, what are the depths of that?
What are the depths of that?
Right.
But I mean, I'm okay and I'm recovering. It's just like, it's just hard to wrap my brain around.
So you don't remember waking up like a man? Like, there was no guys there?
There was no man in my bed.
So did you leave, like, right away?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I never talked to any of them again. And I know a lot of those models still talk to them to this day because they have a lot of power.
And have you asked, like if anybody else has experienced similar situations?
I have been reached out. I've posted about this before just on my Facebook. Nothing like... I'm scared because he's so powerful and his family is so powerful. But I have posted about it on my Facebook, and one of the models reached out to me and was like, hey, I know what you're going through. I was there that night, and I know I've been there, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know.
But no one, like, knows it, like, what actually happened.
No.
Specifics of anything.
All I have is that bodyguard's recount.
It's crazy how many times that things like this happen because, like you, Desi, which I never came out to say because my story is with the being roofied is a lot more like yours. Luckily, my best friend who passed away, Stephanie, was there and she recognized very strange behavior.
Right.
I had like one glass of champagne. We were out, and my ex-boyfriend at the time was my ex. His best friend, another similarity, handed me a drink, and then I remember nothing. Like, she said I was speaking gibberish. And luckily, I had a new boyfriend. This was months later. I had, not that it mattered. I'm like PCing this. No, but it was, but whatever. So I had a new boyfriend who was wonderful, and he had to leave like a major event to come, and like she called him to come and get me. And luckily, nothing happened. But like, had she not been there or whatever, and they had said they saw the guy who gave me the champagne starting to get handsy and this and that. And luckily, like, God bless and rest her soul, but one of my best friends, Stephanie, at the time, she like was like, nope, like, we're getting you out of here. And she brought me to a bathroom. She brought me to a restaurant a few blocks down, and she like sat me in the bathroom. She's like, I need to like sit her in here for a minute, and like sat me on the toilet until my boyfriend came and like was able to pick me up and put me in the car. And I woke up the next morning having no idea. I'm like, oh my God, like I was just like in my pajamas on my couch, and the last thing I remember was being
in a club.
It was a daytime thing too. It was like a lounge, like a daytime, like a Sunday brunchy thing. And I think it was like 14 or something. Remember that place? But this is now 4 people in one circle, which I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have been roofied. It could be 6 people, but I mean, even that statistic, like 4 out of 6 in one circle. Just be careful, guys. And if something's happened, like, get it out of your body once again. It's just so important to talk with your friends about it. It makes you feel a million times better.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, the thing that when mine happened, I had luckily, because, you know, what I do, I noticed the signs, and I remember sitting there on the couch, and I told my friend, I was like, hey, we have to go. Like, I don't feel like myself, something happened. Like, something was in that drink that I just drank. And then kind of, like, slowly just kind of went downhill from there. So, yeah, like, I mean, and I've talked about this with you guys before, how Keelan, who was on my podcast episode last season, or I think it was the beginning of the season, she was in Portugal and was at a bar, and the bartender brought her a drink, and then she ordered a drink, and he said, I'll bring it to your table, brought it to her table, and then he brought her another drink without her asking. Last thing she remembers until she woke up in, like, basically a brothel type place with 20 men around her, and she was, still to this day does not remember what happened to her.
Yeah.
We've had to do some, you know, intense therapy and stuff because she's still trying to figure it out. And this, like you said, this happens, unfortunately. And so I think it's really important that, you know, nowadays, like, this is happening so much. Like you said, there's so many things that are constantly being all over the news, all over the internet, because this stuff happens. And
just to piggyback on, and that's what the people who are willing to share.
Right.
Can you imagine how many stories that are still silent
that are shamed because they don't know what happened to them.
Don't talk about it. And so for me,
or they're being threatened, or God knows what.
Right.
For all these. So for me, coming from a place where I have never experienced any of this type of trauma, for so long I was just like, I had got this normal life. You know, I mean, I had struggles as a kid, and coming from a poor family and all of that. But I was just like, I'm normal. I realize now, today, in this moment, of every one of my friends and talking to people who've had this situation and had these horrific things happen to them, I'm like, wait a minute. That's the normal. I'm the one that's abnormal. Like, to come to that realization. Which is so wild.
It is. It's
sad. Like, wait a minute. I'm the one with the, like, odd childhood of a happy childhood. Or that I didn't experience any of this kind of trauma or violation. Do you know what I mean? So that's such a crazy revelation to have.
Well, I think we talked about this earlier, me and Seek, because, you know, last night, like I said, we had wine over here with Cassie, and we all went to sushi and talked about our stories a little bit. And then we came back here, and I was talking to Cassie and her boyfriend about, you know, my situation, a little bit of my story, my recent story. And her boyfriend asked me some questions. I told him some things. And
he's now so inspired. He's writing a script.
Yeah, he's going to write a script.
That is,
and he's going to write a movie about my life. And we're going to throw this out there right now. We're going to do a script, and we were like, going to be something.
We were like, wait a minute. He wasn't like checking out of the conversation. He went to go get creative and download.
Because when he came up, because when you were in the bathroom, he came up to me. He's like, all right, so, and I was like, well, so would you produce? I would love for you to, like, maybe let's talk about doing a script, because I really want to do that. He's like, I'm already over here writing, I've already been starting. I was like,
no, and we know exactly who will play you.
Yes, and Demi Lovato, if you're listening.
Demi Lovato.
Yes. That's what everyone always says I was like her, so it's a joke.
Totally. No, and, like, we were in, and I feel like she would totally be so incredible in that role, and she's just got, like, I don't know, she's a warrior, and she, like, fights for
I already
like
know,
this, and
like,
I feel like she would be so down.
Her mental health, everything, like,
yeah, you guys would have some great
But, you know, but I was telling Seek earlier, I was like, his shock of my story.
Oh, yeah.
Your friend from last night, Megan, her shock, like, when you went to the bathroom, she was like, you were in the bathroom both times. But anyway,
I peed a lot. I warned you when we sat down. I'm like, give me the end scene.
No, I literally realized that. I'm like, when you were in the bathroom, wait, well, you're in the bathroom.
I have to pee so bad right now. I'm not lying. I'm sitting here like, rocking back and forth.
But no, so, like, you know, Megan's reaction was like, oh my gosh, like, she just was in shock. And then he was in shock. And again, it's so sad because for me, I've become kind of, I don't know what the word is, like, desensitized to it. So when people are shocked by my story, I'm like, well, why are you, like, tripping out about it?
Yeah.
Like, why is it so shocking to you? Because working in this industry, this is all I hear.
Right.
Working in this industry, working in, you know, mental health as a crisis worker, as a counselor, this and that, I hear this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So then when I hear people that don't have a story, like Seek, or people who haven't had something majorly happen to them like that, like Cassie, it's like, dang, you guys are the ones that are, like, abnormal.
Totally.
Which is totally
I
sad and fucked up, because it's like, this is really sad that I'm literally fighting for something, and we're fighting, you know, as a group for something that's so big and important, but it's so normal.
Right.
And it's so okay. And it's so regular. And it happens daily. And it happens, you know, several times a day. Like, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Like,
Really, though,
okay.
this is so amazing, because, like like I was saying, I got inspired to tell my story from other people that had opened up, and you heard mine, and so like hopefully that
was
I
wasn't going to tell that story that I told until I heard your story.
I feel like they're probably still doing it.
Well, it's a fetish, and that's something I was going to share with you. Is like that's something that I went through too. Is I don't know what you guys know about my story, but basically I was kidnapped and held captive in a house and sold in sex trafficking at 17
for 6 weeks.
And
Jesus fucking Christ!
Oh my god!
And one of
her episode, season 2.
Sorry, one of the guys that would come into that house, his fetish was to have sex with somebody who was dead. So they would give me a sleeping pill before he showed up. And then I don't know. But the worst part is that when I went to rehab for all of this, my mom and I were searching on porn sites because my mom and I were getting emails from people of, oh, I see your daughter on this porn site. Because everything was recorded. It was all on live webcam. They were making money off of the live webcam. Plus charging the guys to come in and do what they wanted. And then also selling it to the porn sites. So the worst part is that some of those times that I don't remember,
it's out there.
I actually got my answers, but I got it through watching it fucking happen on a porn site.
Sorry.
I can't even imagine.
So all the questions you guys have, she has her answer. So watching it happen.
And like with the roofie, my story's more like you guys. Like I was actually with my best friend Stephanie as well.
Weird.
And so weird. And we were down in Miami, and DJ Khaled was playing there at one of the big clubs, and we got into his VIP, and somebody had given me a drink, and luckily Stephanie's one of those people, she likes to more of wait till like later at night to get drunk. So she was kind of waiting to drink. She was still drinking her water. And so she knows I started acting like totally bizarre. And, I had just come to spend Easter with her family. Like, this was it was such a mess. And so she took me to the bathroom, and I actually was so, like, out of it that I fell on the sink and broke the sink off and, like, flooded the whole club.
Oh, my God!
I don't remember any of it. And then next morning, I wake up naked in a bed with my best friend Stephanie next to me, and it was some dude's apartment that like saw us at the club like struggling, and he was like a promoter there or whatever, and he like offered us one of his condos to stay at. And apparently, like, I don't know, they like gave me a bath together, and I'm still like, I don't know. It's like just so weird how all this stuff
that's
happened.
where it started.
No, can I ask one question just in case people didn't see the other episode, and I want to put this on the Buddha Bullying one-on-one platform as well.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me so that we can just make people aware of any of the signs, if there are any, and I'm sure that they vary, how you were, I don't know, summoned or taken or kidnapped is the right word? Like,
so
lured
she goes into a little bit, but maybe you can a little
just
brief
really
description.
quickly, because if we can ever save anybody from anything.
It was somebody that I worked for a while. And he had gotten into a car crash, so he had the perfect excuse for me to be driving him to work. And, I would have to bring him the checks, and basically my boyfriend at the time was really addicted to Adderall and then drinking, so that caused, a very angry mix. And so I was working multiple jobs to make more money to give to him to buy his drugs and do what he's doing. And so my boss, my kidnapper, he knew that I needed the job in order to keep my man happy, and that was when you're 17, keeping your boyfriend happy that's your number one priority. What do you want, baby? I'll go get it for you. Anything. I'll pick up another job, sure. And so he knew I needed the job. Then he knew that my boyfriend got sent off to rehab, so the only person that I knew in Orlando just got sent off to a facility. So there was nobody there, and I was not in contact with my family.
So that's why for 6 weeks nobody looked for her, because nobody knew that she was gone because her boyfriend was in the facility, and her family and her didn't have a relationship. So for 6 weeks she went off the radar, but nobody had known.
Yeah.
So it was your boss
She went to go pick up the checks, and then
we're also doing a movie about her. We decided that I'm going to play her.
Yeah. Yeah. So she went to go pick up her checks, and then when she walked in, she basically got trapped into staying.
But here's what's weird. Okay, because I say it's 6 weeks. But what's weird is one of the girls that was in that house, she is the only other survivor of it.
The others were killed.
Oh my
God.
So horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And she saw what I was doing on social media, and she was in hiding because she got pregnant from everything. And she reached out to me, and I recently took my husband, who I recently just married, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we went to go see her because she actually only lives about, I think it was
a light at the end of the tunnel.
And she only lives like an hour and a half away from me right now. And I always was wondering, why am I here? Why am I still in Florida? I need to get out of here. I don't like this area. I don't like the people here. Like, I don't want to be here. I should go somewhere else. And she saw everything that I was doing on my platform, trying to raise awareness for this and coming out about Andrew. And I'm in the process of pressing my own charges now. And
so he's not in prison?
He is.
Yes,
but not by her. Somebody else
from another person that he
their parents pressed charges on her behalf.
So he is in prison, but not from her. But she's in the process of getting her charges added.
Yeah, and so
so this friend that you found, the other girl that you connected with,
me and my husband went to go see her and meet her kids. And when I was there, like, I mean, just seeing her for, like, the first time, like, that was, like, absolutely crazy. I mean, this is a girl, like, we used to literally sit there and, like, we would just, like, look into each other's eyes and we're like, just look at me and, like, everything's fine. Like, this was, you know, this person. And she wasn't ready to open up when she first reached out to me. And then she reached out to me again, and this is when I went to go see her finally. And, it was crazy because she opened up and she told our whole story, mine and her story, through her perspective. And she remembers things that I don't remember. And to hear her sing everything, I mean, my husband's sitting there, he's hearing it. And then for the first time, I mean, you just had somebody reach out to you and tell you that I was stealing somebody else's story. And that I wasn't telling the truth. And to hear her come out about everything and tell me this, not only was it validating, but it also, I've been having to, like, go back to therapy, like, heavy because of the things that she has reminded me of that I have forgotten.
Right. So you were originally saying that it might have been longer than 6 weeks?
She says it was longer than 6 weeks, but I don't think it was. I think that
it was around 2 months, give or take. So, I mean, either way, that's...
Oh my God, are you kidding? 2 seconds.
So, I mean, a day.
I was just bringing
either
you back,
way,
but yeah.
So, and even with the whole, like, sex trafficking thing we talked about yesterday, you know, and I've talked about this with you guys, but I don't think I've talked about it on my podcast yet, about how that interview that, so I did that interview with ABC for my new charges against my old stepdad. And the reporter, the first thing he asked me was so weird because he sat me down and, like, we didn't really prepare, like, questions, but I kind of was already knowing what he was going to talk about. And so he sat down and he goes, first, I want to ask you, so I started telling my story, and then he goes, first question I'm going to ask you is, when all this was happening, he's like, how do you feel? Do you think that you were his sex slave? And that was the first time anyone had ever asked me that. Like, I have never been asked that. That was the first time that perspective, it was the weirdest thing. It was like someone literally, like it just hit me. And I remember just kind of being like, wait, what?
Like you just gave me another label to think about.
Yeah, like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, like, do you think you were his sex slave? And then I thought about it because, again, with what we do, with what I do, I fight for, you know, sexual child abuse. I fight for human sex trafficking of children, all these different things. But I've always kept them separate. I've always kept sex trafficking separate from, okay, well, I'm not a sex trafficking victim or anything, but I was sexually abused as a child, but that's different. But now that, like, we're all sitting here and we're talking about all these different stories and stuff, like, that is not different. Because, yes, if I really look at it and I look up and I write both situations down, the only difference is that I didn't have more than one person. But I was at his beck and call when he said what he wanted, when he wanted it, how he wanted. I didn't have those options. I didn't have those choices. So, and I'm only saying this because I think a lot of times, especially nowadays with everything that's going on, and everybody's being very vocal about human trafficking. but not child sexual abuse, because child sexual abuse, they're in their homes, and like, especially with this pandemic, like that is hard for me, because it's like these kids, so like me being trapped in my house with my old stepfather for weeks at a time, like I can't even imagine, like just with what I went through enough, like every day,
thinking about that.
Yeah, that with what I went through every day was enough, but considering like everything that people, like these kids could be going through multiple times a day. So again, the only reason why this is important for me to even say is because I think a lot of times people are like, well, my story's not as bad. Well, my story's not as bad as yours. Well, my story's not as bad as yours. Well, I was drugged, but I didn't get raped, so it's okay. Well, I was drugged. You know what I mean? All of these things. What it comes down to is it's fucking disgusting. We're all victims, but we're all survivors of this type of situation. And I don't want somebody to hear this and think, well, I wasn't, abused as a child for several years. I was only raped once, so it's not as bad as yours. Vice versa. I don't want to, like, somebody with my situation be like, oh, well, yeah, I was, this happened to me for a lot of years, but I wasn't raped multiple times by multiple people. Do you know what I mean? Right. So I really just want everyone to know that's hearing this from Buddha Bullying, Badass Do-Gooders, Candle and Dark Room, whoever is listening to this, to just know, like, it doesn't matter. We all, as a society, need to quit comparing those situations.
Yes.
It's all wrong. It's all not okay. We all need to use our voices. Like Brittany said, this is why it's important to sit here and talk about this right now. Because a child could be being saved right now by listening to this episode. A person that's at home being bullied at school all day because they're assholes at school, but really are being abused at home. That people have no idea. Or a little girl who's maybe being trafficked by her boyfriend or her parents or whatever, but is going to school during the day, and people think that she's just disgusting and doesn't get ready in the morning. Or whatever the situation is, it's like, we have no idea.
Judgment. That's all.
Let's stop being assholes to one another. Let's stop comparing to one another.
I think why it did take so long is because I did downplay it a lot.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that, because I was like, well, like I said, like, I knew him and this and
but
that, but like,
it doesn't matter if it's your
hearing
husband.
all this, I'm
Right.
like, fuck no. Like, I think it was a
I'm talking good episode on like downplaying things.
Yes.
You did, and I was like,
well, I've been talking to this woman who happened by her husband. It doesn't matter if it's your fucking husband.
That's what my dad
or
was with my
what.
mom.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's your husband, and if you've given him consent 100 times, you say no in that moment. It is no. It doesn't matter if it's your best friend.
No,
you say no.
no.
No is no. Let's teach that teach that to our children now. Parents, teach that to your young child, your boy. Teach him, like, when a girl says no, she means no. She means no now. Like, there's no excuses. That is a huge thing for me to teach my son right now. His is like, hey, your sister said don't touch that, so don't touch that. Like her toy or something. Right. Or he goes and bugs her in her room, and she's like, Bug, get out of my room. And he doesn't listen. When your sister says she needs space, she needs space. When your sister says no to not wanting you to touch her things, then don't touch her things. It may be as simple as touching her ball, but let's teach our children these boundaries. Because, again, this kind of stuff would have been taught to us when we were young. Maybe we would have been more aware to the situations. Maybe I would have felt more safe to tell somebody at 7 years old instead of waiting until I was 15 at 8 years later. Maybe you would have not gone inside and felt like more aware, hey, this is a little bit of a sketchy situation. Maybe I should call someone to let them know I'm going. You know what I mean? So either way, like, again, this is so important to spread this awareness on all of these issues, because it's all in the same circle, and it all comes together.
I love what you just said, though, because, and I don't mean to, like, let me start over. Edit that out. Because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But it is so important, truly, to make sure that parents are having the very most uncomfortable conversations. But I don't care how uncomfortable it is for you. This is a matter of, you can be saving your child from something 10, 20 years down the line, but you have to have the uncomfortable conversations.
Exactly.
You have to show them that, like, the world is not always rainbows and lollipops, and when you get older, things happen, and just obviously there are ways to do it and ways to
obviously
ease
there's a filter in
things,
some way,
but they need to be aware. They have to, because the second that we fall short in communication, everything
then
else falls.
They think the world's a safe place, and
and one other
vulnerable.
Thing. Like Seak was saying, with every, because we all work in different fields, and obviously, like, I have done anti-sex trafficking work, and I have done, been on your podcast, and we've talked about abuse, and I did something recently with domestic abuse, but even if your issue is just the fact that you get anxiety, or you're your own worst critic in your head, or you're your or it's a self-bullying situation, it is still so okay for you to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, because people hear, they hear certain stories and they think, oh, well, like, I just have anxiety. I'm just going to sit back. And that's what happened just last night when your friends didn't want to talk. Remember, I was telling you, like, we had someone that was thinking of maybe talking or speaking, but then she went on your page and saw everything you've been through, and she was like, oh, like, I almost, like, don't even deserve to say anything. And it's like, don't compare. It's like, everybody's situation is personal. Sure, some are way worse, but it doesn't mean that
it doesn't mean it's not affecting you in the same way. And that's the thing, too. Like, that can affect you. Your anxiety can affect you with PTSD and emotions and anything. It's just as bad as me being raped.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Everybody is different, and their effects of the way that they interpret things, depending on how sensitive they are, depending on how their heart is, things like that. Like, it's going to affect everyone different, and like, that's okay. Don't compare yourself to what's worse and what's not. Just like with bodies, like, I'm sorry, I'm never going to be 110 pounds because I have a completely different body shape.
Look at this.
I'm never going to, there's certain things that we have to look at. The same, with bullying. Like, we could sit there and, again, talk crap about a girl who maybe is, like, dressed down, but we have no idea what her situation is.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, totally. And there are people that have been, sex trafficked.
Right.
There are people that have been sex trafficked, and there are people who have been through, what you've been through in the child abuse. And you guys are survivors. You're warriors. You're like the light. And there are kids I know, or there are parents I know whose young kids have not dealt with either of those scenarios, who have committed suicide. You know what I mean? So you don't know how something's affecting somebody.
I do think a silver lining of this pandemic in a terrible situation is it has really brought a lot of light to mental health. And I think people who didn't realize they had mental health issues are coming to terms with it. And I think as terrible as that is, I think it's important that people are realizing, just like you're saying, people may not realize like deep down issues, and then they, God forbid, going and commit suicide or whatnot. But it really has normalized mental health, and a lot of people do feel like they're not alone and whatnot, because everyone is going through a really rough time right now.
Well, like you said, it's helping people realize for other people too. Like, I didn't realize how bad my wife's depression was. Right. I didn't realize how bad that my husband's suicide talk was. Like, I thought he was just bullshitting, but
look what happened to me over quarantine.
Yeah, like, well, exactly. Like, well, and my friend, who was also on my podcast, her husband had talked about, like, committing suicide for years, but, like, it was kind of not a joke, but, like, she knew he wasn't serious. He would just say things when he was depressed, but, like, no one took it seriously until he did it one day, and just, that was it. So, like, this is the kind of stuff that's happening because, like you said, the pandemic is really bringing to light the sex trafficking, the mental health, all the shit that people have kept their heads buried on for so many years. But again, it's also important. That's why it is, like, I 100% advocate for sex trafficking and all those things. But I also want people to understand the whole thing with the kids that are being abused at home, because I feel like that's not getting enough light. That's something that's happening that's not getting talked about. Well, people are talking.
Thank you, Jessie. You're so
good.
Well,
my husband and I were talking about the other day, but you hear like, oh, that's just a crazy uncle. Like, he just does stuff like that, and you can't do that anymore.
We need to quit downplaying everything, because again,
listen to your kids.
It's hard for me. Again, I'm out there,
believe them,
and I'm out there marching and doing all these things for sex trafficking. But when I try to get people to do this stuff for, like, just kids that are being abused at home, it goes silent, and people don't want to help, and people don't want to get involved. That's just too much for them to handle. And it's like, this is happening this is just as important as sex trafficking. This is just as important as that, because this is kids that can't escape it, and they're sitting in it right now. And so again, talking to our kids is so important, and being vulnerable with them and letting them know, like, the world is not, like you said, rainbows and butterflies. The whole thing with Peaches, like, I told my kids, I didn't tell them about the whole sex trafficking part, but I told them about how this woman was selling her daughter for people to do bad things to her daughter, and that she was kidnapped. And I mean, I tell my kids, like, a little girl that went missing in Utah, I told them that her uncle kidnapped her. Her uncle kidnapped her, raped her, and then they found her in the forest, and she was like 4. And it was horrible. And it was the mom's brother, who was a drug addict, who had come home, like, to stay with them for a couple days and was sleeping on the couch, kidnapped a little girl in the middle of the night, took her to the woods, and then raped and murdered her.
No.
And
I can't.
It was horrible. And, like, they were looking for her for, like, 3 days, and she was, like, 50 feet from the house. But, like, the way they couldn't find her because she was covered in trees. Yeah, she died. She was murdered.
Well, and also...
So my point of that is, the reason I was saying that is because... No, you're fine. But the reason I was saying that is because, like, let's tell our kids about those things. Like, they don't need to know that she was raped. They don't need to know she was, her head was cut, whatever the situation is. But they need to know, like, this shit happens. Yeah. And when my kids ask me to go spend the night, my son will literally throw a fit. Like, you're so, my thing is, you don't trust anybody, Mom. Nope, you're right. I don't. And I'm okay with that. You'll love me when you're older. But as of right now, I don't care if I'm an asshole. Because that's what I get all the time. It's not fair, Mom. You don't let us do anything fun. Like, I mean, I'd rather be that. Same. I'd rather be a Scrooge than a mom that was blind and let her kids go do whatever because that's what they wanted to do. So, again, like, this whole conversation is just so important because it doesn't matter if you're 2, it doesn't matter if you're 20, it doesn't matter if you're 30, it doesn't matter if however old you are, this can happen to you. And unfortunately, rape, assault, any of those things do not discriminate. So this is an important topic. This is something that needs to be continued to be spoken about. And, Alexa, thank you for, like, coming out and being open about what happened to you because I can tell it's heavy, it's still raw, and it's something that's it's going to take work, and it's going to hurt some days, like today, it hurt worse than others, and you're going to wake up and you're going to have those sad days, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay, okay? It is okay to not be okay. It is okay to tell yourself, like, you know what? I'm feeling really shitty today, and this fucking sucks, and I'm going to just sit home, watch Lifetime, and I'm going to do nothing, and just feel sorry for myself for a day. Like, it is okay to do that. But then tomorrow, you pick yourself up, we put our, capes on, and we go conquer the world. Because that is the only way that
you're going to start healing.
We're going to heal. And that
I just want to say thank you for giving me the platform to do that, because if I hadn't had this platform today, I would have just been watching Lifetime.
Exactly.
But,
and that's another thing, like, call a friend.
I want to say 3 last things before we go, because I think they're important for everyone to hear. The first one is just, I know that this type of conversation is I know that this type of subject matter is very heavy, but I was having this conversation with Chris, my boyfriend, yesterday, about how easy it is to turn a blind eye because it is so heavy, and you're almost like, someone else will deal with that. No, we are the people. We are the fucking human race. Don't turn a blind eye. Anything you can do, even if it's the smallest amount, you can donate, help, get involved, volunteer, do it. Like, there are so many people struggling, and it could be you. It could have been you. It could have been your sister. It could have been your daughter. It could have been your mother. It could have been a guy that you know. I mean, men struggle as well. Let's not forget that as, too. And so just don't turn a blind eye. That was 1. 2, what can we do? Like, what can we do immediately right now? Like, just to tell anybody, like, make sure people have tracking info that you love. Make sure they can see where you are, GPS wise. Like,
we gotta turn in location.
So a couple of different suggestions for that.
Yes,
so
I want to say
one
as well.
Is to definitely, my family and I, we have trackers on our phones. People are like, why are you following your husband's phone? Whatever.
Follow him.
No. You follow each other.
Not because of that.
If not,
but follow each other.
But if you don't want to keep it all the time, when you're going out with somebody, hey, I'm going to drop you. I sometimes like go out with my friends and I'll just drop my husband a pin of where I'm at. Just so he knows, like, if I don't show up at home, where the last place I was at or something like that. That is huge. Communication. Let people know. You don't just, like, go to somebody's house without telling them. Like, in the middle of nowhere, going to meet somebody on Craigslist to pick up an item and not tell anybody where you're going. So that is huge. Again, I've talked about this on my page a lot. Pepper spray. Get some type of self-defense thing to keep on you at all
pocket
times.
Knife.
There's this
is that
girl
one? I don't know. Am I
follow.
giving the wrong? But
No, there's this girl I follow. Her name is Bree, and she has this page on my page. I've shared her stuff before. It's called Fight for Girls. She lived in Utah, and she was asleep in her room. Her window was cracked open, and a man jumped in, tried to assault her. He stabbed her multiple times. Her sister came from behind, screamed, all this stuff. An off-duty police officer heard the scream, came in and shot the guy. It was a huge thing. Anyway, she has a thing where she, like, put it on your finger, and when you go jogging or anything, it's like, it has a blade and a pepper spray. So
amazing.
It's like really cool. So there's lots of different things that you can get for that. Being open with your kids, being very vulnerable without your kids. Hey, if you are ever uncomfortable, you make sure that you tell Mom, even if somebody tells you not to and tells you to keep secrets.
No secrets.
No secrets. A book.
Oh, and people who are being threatened. I want to, before I forget.
Yes.
There are so many anonymous hotlines and places that are safe where you will be okay. I don't care what the fucking person says. You'll be okay. But that's a huge thing.
And
as
I
well,
wish that someone would have told me that. Because, that was my thing that kept me silent for so long. Was that your family? My family. My family was being threatened. They were going to be killed, and this and that. And I wish that someone would have would have told me, like, still tell even if they tell you not to.
And sorry, I just want to say one thing. You mentioned this earlier, and just like hearing like everyone else's stories, I think it's important to never think this can't happen to you or someone you love.
Right.
Because I am guilty of that. Right. Not just from my story, but just in general. You watch movies and you hear these stories and you're like, you never think like that would never happen to me. And just like hearing everybody's stories, I think that's important for myself as well to understand.
It can happen to anybody.
Unfortunately, it can happen to anybody.
Men are trafficked.
Not talked about.
Exactly. Right, men are trafficked. Like, it's huge. Totally. A book that I want parents to look into, Some Secrets Should Never Be Kept, by Janine Sanders. Anyway, it's called Janine. It's Jayneen. So Janine Sanders. Again, Some Secrets Should Never Be Kept. And it literally goes through a situation where a neighbor touched the boy and he told him not to tell. And it's very, like, specific, but without being too graphic. So that's an important book. There's lots of other ones that I can recommend on my page, but those are important. So that is probably the top things to just communicate. Like I said, when you go places, tell somebody, keep in communication, keep something on you to keep yourself safe if you need to defend yourself. And then if anything happens and you're wishy-washy about it, ask somebody. Call somebody. Reach out to somebody who works in this field. We're all on Instagram. There's lots of us. Candle in a Dark Room. Hey, this happened to me. I need some advice on. Like, I get those messages all the time. Like, do you think that this was, what do you think about this? Call a professional therapist and, get an evaluation about what happened. Whatever the situation is, just don't be ashamed. If it feels uneasy, it probably is. Because our intuition, follow your gut. Our intuition tells us when something is wrong. And that's what we need to follow.
Yeah. Back to the tip of telling people. So even my husband is super protective. Like, I let him know, like, everything. I've arrived. I'm safe.
Right.
I'm leaving. I'm on my way. Blah. Even like taking Uber and Lyft.
Yes.
The practice that we have as a family. We're in a family thread. So my kids, my husband, and so when I get in an Uber, I screenshot the confirmation of the driver, everything, and I send it to my family.
Yeah.
So
they know. And I send to my husband that, and then I drop him a pin as well, like to follow. So those are important things that we can do to kind of help. Again, even if you're just running to Target, hey, I'm at Target, because we've seen how those type of things are happening.
I've been hearing things about Target, Walmart, parking lots.
There was something
always
where
look
people
all
are
around
putting
you.
like plastic over windshield wipers, like at the car wash, which are signs that, like, when you leave, someone follows you, and it means that they're alone.
Also,
and
here
they have
are
no one.
the ties on the mirrors.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of different
ties, or that you're a woman alone.
I found a zip tie on my mirror.
Yeah. So there's different, like, signs. So basically, again, it's just like, and it's so sad that this is the case, but you guys, we need to be aware.
I don't care. I'd rather be absolutely anxious at all times in that way and nervous than
when you're leaving a parking lot at night, leaving work or whatever situation.
You can be calm when you're
get
at home.
on the phone with somebody as you're walking to your car. Get, just little things.
When you're going on a jog.
Yes, little things that can literally save your life. Like, this woman in Utah, again, I think it was in Utah, went for a jog, and she's been missing for like 5 days. And no one knows what happened to her. And she just, like, was a mom and a wife, and, like, nobody knows. So things like that. So anyway, again, it's just things that are important to just make sure you communicate, because it can save your life. This was an amazing episode.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys sitting down, and I want to do more things like this. 'Cause again, I think it's important to get, many different perspectives.
Totally.
You guys, again, this is going to be for Buddha Bullying, Badass Do-Gooders, and Candle in a Dark Room. So I will make sure to post it on all 3 of those platforms. Please reach out to me on Candle in a Dark Room if you need any advice in any of these subjects, as well as you can reach out.
Same thing. You can reach out to all of the organizations
any of us,
about anything you're going through.
Yeah. Bullying, the Buddha Bullying, check out their thing if you're struggling with that.
Yes.
There's so many different things that we all do, and
Mental
we're kind of, with what I do, we have a circle of many different topics and people who work with many different things.
With resources.
So don't,
and then I have
with
Sex
resources.
Loving You.
Right.
Sex Loving You.
Oh yes, and Sex Loving You. Amber does have that podcast as well.
Sex, Love, and You.
Sex, Love, and You,
Okay,
that they
awesome.
recently started. I was a guest on that not very long ago. So yeah, again, there's lots of resources. So there's literally no excuse. Just please reach out and ask for help. Make sure you are following at Candle in a Dark Room on Instagram, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Off to pee. Love you all.